question one, most commonly, you guys get this probably a ton. I know I do. Once you start going to the chiropractor, you have to keep going. What do you guys say about that?
So this is one of my favorite things to talk about with our clients because we do get it a lot. Uh, when we talk about the brain and spinal cord and how it's the most important thing in your body and how you have to take care of it, I think that's one of the things where people start to switch their mindset from, oh, I'm here for my neck pain, back pain, headaches, numbness, tingling, sciatic pain, you name it. They walk in the mindset, I'm going to fix this symptom. But once you change their mindset to, I'm taking care of my brain and spinal cord because that controls every function, all the healing in my body, their mindset starts to change too. I'm not just here to get out of pain. I'm here to make sure that my health's at the highest level possible for the rest of my life. And they get the importance of going to the chiropractor
Mhm.
for the rest of their life.
Boom.
I like to tell people, you don't have to, you get to.
Mm.
You get to go and get adjusted for the rest of your life because here's the thing. Anything that is something that's going to make your health move the needle forward in life, you do all those things for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
So like I look at it as Simon Sinek wrote this book on the infinite game, right? It's not finite. So all things that are pro health that's going to make my body function optimally, I'm going to do forever. And if I have my mindset on this piece that, hey, I'm going to make sure that I eat healthy foods, when do I get to stop doing that? The moment I want my body to not be healthy. I'm going to be exercising forever. I'm going to pursue my wife and my relationship with Jesus forever. So the nervous system that regulates and functions the coordination of your entire body, when should you stop doing that? Never.
Never
So
done.
it's not a matter of you have to. It's like, no, you should do this because this is a massive piece of your health forever.
Agreed. I had a patient this morning kind of asking me along the same questions of like, oh yeah, how long do you do this? And pretty much we were talking about how we get those patients that come in. Usually it's like a guy when you say, hey, anything going on? They say, no, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. Yeah, nothing's wrong. And then they get adjusted for the first time and they come back and they say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how good I could feel. Or what that means is how bad I felt and I didn't even realize it because I wasn't checking in with my body.
Mm,
So when people say, like, oh, you always got to go back, no, you don't have to go back. You're going to want to because now you know what it feels like to function at 100%. And once you feel that and you experience that, you're like, living in any other way is just like living in black and white. You're not at your optimal potential. Um, so I see that a ton. Do you guys see that too?
Someone gave me the analogy of like it not utilizing chiropractic fully is almost like giving a brand new iPhone and just texting on it. Like you're not utilizing it for everything that it could do for your body, you know? And then this morning, as it's funny you said this morning, there was a dad. He came in and he said, well, I don't really have pain, got adjusted, same scenario, felt
Mhm.
better. And the same scenario situation was that he never really felt bad, but he never knew what it was like to feel good.
Yeah.
We kind of live in this place of just like, I'm, I'm fine. And I think the I'm fine zone is a dangerous place to be because the I'm fine zone is like, how's your health? It's fine. Like, how's your marriage? It's fine. Like everything just becomes it's fine. And then it's like that you live in that space long enough, and then that's when you wake up like one day you pick your head up and you go, how did I get to this bad? And
Yeah.
you were just I'm fine for too long.
Yeah. And I think you look around and everybody is, I'm fine around you. So you feel like, oh, everybody has headaches and back pain and can't work out because they're getting older at 35 or 40. It's just common. It's normal. So we don't do anything about it. But the reality is that is not normal.
Mm,
That is abnormal.
yeah.
Like your body is supposed to be vibrant and healthy for all of your time. So yeah, we got to get out of that space where we just think like, oh, I'm just like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
It's all okay. I don't need chiropractic. I'm good. I'm fine.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I can actually relate to this week is a lot of times we're taught in as we're growing up that you got to go to the dentist, right? Because you got to take care of your teeth.
Right, right.
Well, since high school, it's been a long time since I've gone to the dentist. And we actually had a patient walk in who wanted to take care of their health, and she's a dentist right next door to us. And
Mm,
it's like, okay, well, I got to go see you because it's time. And I had a couple cracked teeth, and guess what? They replaced them. And I'm good to go now. And they just did all the work this week. But I always tell people that kind of stuff, once you do the fixing, now my goal is to get back there every 6 months or so to do the cleaning, make sure I'm staying on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing kind of correlates with your spine, but I think it's even, well, I know that it's even more beneficial because you don't just go into the chiropractor and they replace your spine, right? Or the
Yeah, no.
vertebra. So it's something that you have to not only fix and get into the right position so we limit the generation and things like that, but also it's a maintaining thing. Just like every morning we wake up and I hope we brush our teeth, and we don't wait until we have that ache in our tooth to start brushing our teeth and try to fix it, right? And it's the same thing with your spine. We're not waiting until we feel the pain. Once we get out of the pain, it's more or less we're maintaining to make sure we're staying at that optimal functioning and healing state.
So good. And the only thing I'll just piggyback on is I think all of us do that and we believe it because we were taught that as kids,
Mm.
and we're just not taught the importance of spinal education as kids,
Mm.
right? Like we believe that system. Dentists did a great job pouring that into us young,
Mm-hmm.
but there was never just an education on spinal health or your nervous system as a kid. I think if we can now change that paradigm of getting people to believe, understand this, the same way we do with our teeth, we would have that same value of like, oh no, everybody needs to do that. This is like a no-brainer,
Right.
right? Lucas, you just said something. I don't know if people caught this, but if you could elaborate on, you made the comment that um, basically you said just because something is common doesn't make it normal.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is something that if I had to pick something that I quote in my office
Mm-hmm.
so much, and you look at the health of society today,
Yeah.
how can we use that connection of not making common normal in today's culture?
I think it's to realize like how far we've fallen, and that just you got to start with some statistics and they can get pretty intense, but like the common number of prescriptions that someone over the age of 60, I believe, is like they fill 12 prescriptions a year. And that's just like, "Oh, I'm only doing 11." Like, "Yay." It's like, "No, that is so abnormal." And common is for almost half of the United States to be overweight or obese.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going in and I'm not obese, that's yay me. But it's not good enough because we've fallen so far. You take a look at the pictures just with weight gain of uh, the photos of people at the beach back in like the 50s and the 60s. There was no obesity, like health was normal. And it's just become we've drifted like, what do they call it? The frog in the pot, just slowly boiling
Mm-hmm.
until we don't even realize that it's killing us. Like the amount of medications we take, the level of our sickness and disease, especially with kids. Like, oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
all these kids have ADHD, peanut allergies, and skin eczema issues. Like, oh, that's what it is. Like, no, we didn't have that growing up. Or I don't remember that as
Mhm.
much. So recognizing really where we're at from the baseline zero, and that baseline being your body's default is to be healthy. Like you're designed to be healthy. So any deviation from that is a warning sign that something is wrong, and making sure you're brutally honest with yourself and not comparing to everyone else. Because if you compare, it's going to look like you're doing a banger job, and it's just not true.
I would even say like who are you comparing to, like you
Yeah.
said? Because if I'm comparing myself, like you're saying, to a sick culture, and I'm doing better than the majority of people who are on lots of medications and sick, well, the bar is set so low.
Yeah.
But am I comparing myself? Like a good example, I had a patient come in who was in their 70s, and they say, "Well, in lots of pain, not moving, not active," and she's like, "Well, I'm doing pretty good compared to everybody else in my retirement home." And I go, "What if you compared yourself to the 70-year-old that's still doing marathons?"
Yeah.
Like, there's still 70-year-olds out there that are canoeing every day, pickleballing every day, doing all this stuff. So you're like, who is this person that you're comparing yourself to? And again, knowing that just because something is common does not make it a normal
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Right.
And we have to redefine like, well, what is normal? So like, I think what would be good is our vision as chiropractors and holistic doctors is I think we see normal different, right? Like when you look at a normal functioning body, uh, like I think a good transition here would be going right into like kids and babies, because how we see a normal, healthy child is different than what culture sees today with most children,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, Matt, you have a little baby,
Mm.
and all of us had kids, but you look at your baby, and what do you think separates his health from most babies today that probably are struggling with health?
Yeah, this one it hits home because it's such a new baby, and you guys have been through the process before.
Yeah.
How
But
old is
I'm
your baby again?
7 months.
7 months.
Yeah, so we see it in our office, and actually, we just had him in our office for the entire day yesterday. We were celebrating our
Mm-hmm.
second year in practice, and
Woohoo.
uh, he's sitting there and just smiling and crawling around, being on his own, and everyone's like, "You are so lucky. You have such a happy baby." And every single time I take it as a moment we can like talk to them about this is what the normal should be, right? We were talking about normal versus what they think is normal. I don't think it's luck that we have such a happy baby. And I think it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with I know your guys' kids, so I know it's the same thing. Uh when you do the right things for your children and put the right things in their body and fuel them with the right energy and also getting them adjusted is like one of the most important things that you can possibly do for calming their nervous system, which then in turn makes them a happy baby. So background, our baby got stuck. Rhett, he got
Mm-hmm.
stuck when he was we had the home birth, we were doing everything natural. He got stuck. Midwife had to go in, pull him out. One of Dr. Mike's patients, actually. It
Mm-hmm.
was uh really scary but cool experience. But it was right when she came out, because Dr. Mike does such a good job of teaching people why it's important to get adjusted right away. She was doing her test and noticed that he could hardly turn his head to one side because of the situation he was stuck in. We got him adjusted right away. Ever since then, it's been normal. Now, how does that correlate to kids getting adjusted? Uh, if we didn't adjust at that point, who knows what could have happened to Rhett's nervous system.
Yeah.
And when you have a stress stuck nervous system, that's when things start to develop. And
Mm-hmm.
in our world right now, you go see a pediatrician, a normal medical doctor, pediatrician, be like, oh, they'll grow out of it.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the most common things we hear. And stuck nervous systems, you don't grow out of them, you grow into other things. And that's why we see kids that struggle with ADHD and ADD, and they struggle paying attention, and they're crying and fussy and have colic and have trouble digesting. And it all starts with a stuck nervous system, and getting the spine back into position or getting motion back into the spine creates a healthy, happy baby.
Man,
100%.
I
Yeah.
hope you guys just caught what he said. That was gold. That you don't grow out of something, you grow into a diagnosis. You grow into new
Yeah.
symptoms. That you don't grow out of it. That was freaking gold.
I think of it like branches on a tree or like fractals, like for a baby. Like, okay, stuck nervous system, what can that look like? Oh, my baby's not pooping. They're gassy. They're colicky. They're up all night. Like, oh, they're screaming. And then, okay, you get out of that phase. You grow out of it. But what do they grow into? Oh, they're still having gas and now they're difficulty paying attention in school. Oh, they now have ADHD or they've got eczema coming out of their skin. It's like, oh, and then they grow into asthma and they grow into learning disabilities. And they're all the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The root cause of that tree is just sympathetic dominance stuck out of alignment. Just the body is in a stress state.
Mhm.
And no matter what you put into it on the outside, you got to fix that inside, get them back to normal of the body designed to heal and balance nervous system, or else it's just going to keep on switching and getting worse.
I'm gonna cap this piece off here with, I think that most people who have a child, if they're experiencing symptoms and you didn't know where to go, um, by what we've said so far, and then to think that if you understand the premise of if something is dysfunctional in a child in any fashion, and you recognize that the nervous system is what balance and coordinates that child's health, that you have to go back to the thing that balances their body to make sure that where is the dis-ease coming from in that child. So this is why you may not have ever correlated chiropractic to a child who's experiencing some kind of symptom. However, once you understand that the nervous system in that baby is what coordinates their brain to function, is what coordinates their body to process stress, is what coordinates all these actions, it's the first place you should go,
Mhm.
right? So I think that most people, if you have a child with a symptomatic thing or a diagnosis or something, you're looking for where does that child need to go. Number one, it's chiropractor first. Now, if you're a parent and you're watching this, and let's say that you have a kid who has no symptoms. Let's say that you have a kid who has never had been on a medication and they feel totally fine. Here's my question. Why should that kid still get adjusted?
Why should a seemingly healthy, symptom-free kid get adjusted? This is my favorite because it goes into the real definition of what is health anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are going to define, hey, my kid is healthy because they don't have ear infections, they're sleeping at night, they haven't broken a bone, they're not sick, like they feel and look fine. But if you think about it, that is completely off base of what health actually is. And that's why we're in this problem in the first place. Because you can feel fine and be sick. Like, separate yourself from kids for a second. Think of heart disease. 7 out of 10 people find out they have heart disease by having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
If someone has a heart attack on a Sunday, they felt fine on Friday, typically. That's why it's called a silent killer. But we know they weren't healthy. So you can feel fine and be developing sickness on the inside.
Yeah.
So you think of these, type 2 diabetes, ADHD, autoimmune disorders. Like, when did that start? Like, what is the earliest time you can trace it back to where there was sickness going on in the body? That starts in the nervous system. And this is not a chiropractic thing. There's a really cool study back in 2013 where they did an emergency room review where they took a bunch of emergency rooms. They pretty much said, hey, our emergency rooms are flooded with too many people having acute flare ups, like emergency room flare ups with these lifestyle diseases like heart disease and diabetes. So let's put our power and understanding of how far back can we intervene in these people to make sure they don't go down this trajectory that leads to our operating table. So they traced it back, like the high blood pressure, the high insulin levels, all the way back. And you know what they found?
Mm.
The number one motor of chronic disease was nervous system dysregulation. So that can happen all the way from birth. So
Yeah.
even if something is feeling fine, that doesn't mean it's healthy. You got to look at the structure and how the body functions because, that can go silent for years.
You know what's crazy? Did you guys see there's an article that came out where they're inputting a vagus nerve stimulator into people.
Yeah, man.
Can you see
Shocking.
that?
Shocking. I'm healthy.
This is what's so crazy. People have a dysregulated. So if you don't know, your vagus nerve is like the main parasympathetic nerve that goes from your brainstem into all your organs,
Mhm.
and it's like the rest and digest of your body. And these doctors were like, "Hey, we figured this out. That if we can stimulate the vagus nerve to work properly, then the rest of the body will become healthier. We've done it." And I'm like, "You did nothing.
Yeah.
That's what every single adjustment to the cervical spine does.
Yeah.
Stimulate your vagus nerve." I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you don't need to implant a freaking device in your neck.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Oh,
I
Completely
think
crazy.
bottom line out of all of this is what we're saying is health is not how you feel. It's how your body's functioning, healing, and adapting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if you switch your mindset on health, then it makes it easier to understand. Even if my kid's not experiencing symptoms yet, we want to maintain a healthy nervous system, which is maintaining your body functioning, healing, and adapting at the highest level possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we talk about when we talk to parents, why they should be getting their kids adjusted. But I always talk about, because every time I'm sure you guys see it, when they're sitting in the waiting room, what do the parents give them so they sit nice and calm?
Mm-hmm. Little tablet.
Yeah.
iPad, tablet, sit on the phone. They ask their mom for their phone, and it's becoming a lot more prevalent for kids to have iPads at younger ages, have phone at younger ages, and
Yep.
I know I do it in my office, and I know you do it in your office, and I'm going to assume that you do it in your office. When somebody's sitting there texting on their phone, and you walk by them, and they're doing one of
Oh,
these
I call
things,
them out.
call them out, or
Yeah.
I walk up
Hardcore.
and I pull their phone up to bring it up to their face, because we know that that puts a lot of stress on the nervous system, right?
Yeah.
Your cervical spine is one of, I think, the most important curve in your body, and it affects brainstem, it affects cerebellum, it affects how your body's functioning, and everything in your brain has to go through this area to get to the rest of your body.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have stress on the cervical curve from doing this stuff all the time, and we know kids do it all the time, then that is going to be one of the starters or the beginning parts of having a stressed nervous system.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
when we talk to parents about, look what your kid's doing right now, and you know how this is really important for functioning and healing, you can understand why that they need to be getting adjusted and make sure we're starting their health journey off on the right foot.
So like if you're watching this and maybe you didn't know this, so like Dr. Matt saying that there should be a curve at 45 degrees in your neck that curves backward. So when we're spending all our time head down on a device, literally pulling that curve right out. And we had a kid come in the other day, chronic double ear infections, getting sick often, possibly ADHD, all these things. Uh, and at 5 years old, we x-rayed him. And at 5 years old, he had lost the curve in his neck.
Wow.
And I remember I'm going over the x-ray with the dad and the mom. And the son is like you said, the son's over on the chair with his head down on the phone. And he's like, he's 5. How did that happen? And I just pointed. And I said, how often is he on that thing? He goes, too much. And let's be real, like, again, we all have kids. And I think that I don't want to demonize the device. It's the way in which we hold and use the device. Because it could be, I've seen the same thing happen with young kids who are avid readers.
Yep.
Right? It could be a book. And you could have your head down in a bad posture in a book, just put something positive. So again, we're not demonizing the device, we're demonizing the bad posture of whatever that thing is. And in today's culture, we're just in those postures very often all the time. So we got to make sure that as if you're a parent, you have kids, or even if you're just anybody out there who is have a spine, you should be
Yes.
making sure that you are doing life with a good posture, keeping this in in a good place, so that your body's not under chronic tension going the wrong way.
Let me add something that I think parents don't realize or don't think about. Even I kind of miss it at the beginning too, is what does the body tell the mind when the posture is slouched? Like you think of, especially, young teens going through
Yeah.
puberty, if there is depression, sadness, shyness, like that forces the body in this slouched protective fetal position.
Mhm.
So that stresses the hip flexors, which are the neurological connection of your brain to the lower half, telling your body, okay, be stressed, be sympathetic, life is scary. That flexes here. There's not as much deep breathing. So there's going to create more anxiety, more panic attacks. When people have panic attacks, they feel tightness in their chest. They're not getting full enough air. Blood pressure goes up, stress and tension in the neck go way up. Restriction to the brain happens by like 200%, like crazy amounts of restriction of blood flow.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take a child from here and you open up the spine and you let their body go here, not only physiologically are they breathing better, more blood flow to the brain, but that does something to their psychology of like, oh, don't be scared. Don't be stressed. Like I can start talking more the developmental milestones that you want to be hitting of social awareness and being friendly towards that changes. That changes everything. And I think that's one thing that's overlooked of the physical and the mental bridge in health is the posture and how much
Absolutely.
positive posture affects the mind.
One thing I think we keep talking about a lot of these really really good topics. I think one thing is when you look at chiropractic, there sometimes people ask like, "Oh, how do I know that my spine's out of alignment? How do I know if I have something that's like out of place, or how do I know if I even need to be adjusted?" And I think there's a depth here to help people make sure that they know. Because sometimes you're watching this, right? And you're like, you could be thinking, man, I have a friend at church right now, or I have friends at work, or people that I know. And like, how do they know? And I think number one, I would start here. I would say that there are 3 things that will cause the spine to dysregulate, out of place, and subluxate, out of position, and it's stress to the physical, chemical, and emotional. Right?
Mhm.
Physical, chemical, and emotional trauma to the spine, to the body, and the body's inability to adapt to those stressors is where we see the body come into this place. Right now, there's something unique that the 3 of us do in our clinics to, we say, not guess but test. So if someone is out there and you're like, man, I know that something's probably going on, but I don't really know, like, what's something that you do that we all do it, but what is the thing that we do that's like, hey, here's how you know for sure if you're in or out of alignment?
Yeah, this is somebody walks into our office and a lot of time they're like, I feel like my one hip is a little higher than the other, or I feel like my neck's a little out of whack is what they'll call it. And uh we'll talk about what normal looks like with the spine, and then I always point behind me because that's where my X-ray machine is, and I'm like, it's hard to hide from this thing.
Well,
So, what we do is we take X-rays, and we know exactly what their spine looks like because you can't hide from that thing, and it tells you exactly where things are misaligned and how far they're misaligned. So.
Mhm.
One of the things that's really cool in all of our practices is we do x-rays and then we mark them to see exactly how many degrees of curvature are in their spine and in their neck, low back, things like that, and then how far their hips are off.
Mhm.
So I know you hit it on a little bit earlier. We want to have a 45-degree curve in the neck, so cervical spine, in the mid back, your thoracic spine, and then also in your low back,
Mhm.
in the lumbar spine, all at 45 degrees. And then we want your head to be stacked over top of your shoulders, right? The further, and you were touching on this earlier, further your head gets out in front of you, the more stress that it puts on the neck and shoulders. And then from the front, we want your hips to be level and your spine to be straight. And then deviation from that is what we work on correcting through spinal correction practices in our offices.
One thing I love about what we all do in the office is because there's other chiropractors who will take x-rays, and that's like, okay, who should get checked? Like what? Take the x-ray, you'll be able to see if you're out of alignment, you need to go get adjusted, you need to get that fixed. But then also following up with other x-rays to make sure you corrected what you set out to fix.
Yeah.
I know so many people, I asked them like, oh, you've been to a chiropractor before, it was good, you got x-rays, did they ever take x-rays at the end? Like, what? Like, well, they said it was out, like, did they ever fix it?
Yeah.
And they're just like,
It's a good question.
no. But so you want to have both, and that's why you guys in the office, many of you get both, most of you do,
Mhm.
is so that we can see objectively, is this changing? Like not just how we feel, like not just guessing, but seeing the results. That's why you'll see a lot of great results in offices like in these guys' offices, because it's objective and you're clearly making changes. Um, One thing I also check, because there's also the question of like, oh, sometimes kids,
Mm.
like we're not taking x-rays on all the kids. Actually, a lot of them we aren't. And some of them you would think of like the warning signs that a child has of colic or eczema. What if my kid doesn't have x-rays and doesn't have any symptoms? How do I know if they should get checked? What would you guys say there?
Do they have a spine?
Do they have a spine?
Well, and I would say this: if you just look at if you have a kid, um, when like I have a 10-month-old right now who is pulling himself up on stuff, and then he has older siblings. So if you were to watch that guy in one day, he's probably falling on his butt, hitting his head back, smashing his face over 100 times, easy. And you think, if that's one day, what's that one day multiplied day after day after day? And I think we say, oh, kids are so resilient. I'm like, they are. However, it just takes that one good one or enough micro traumas to eventually create a problem. And you're not going to know it because that, 10-month-old isn't going to say, hey, dad, my back hurts. Like, so like, you don't know, but you start seeing patterns in kids, right? You start seeing that, hey, like I know that their body, they're not, they just don't seem like they're at ease. They don't seem like they're sleeping at ease. They seem like they can't sit and focus. They seem like they're irritable. They seem like if they're a baby, they seem like they're crawling off. There's patterns that you can identify to be like, something is not right here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I think there's two things that I think of for depending on the age of the kid that can tell that they're in a stuck or a stressed nervous system state. We just had one walk into our office yesterday, who will not walk. They
He
got
walk in by
carried
himself.
into the parents walked into the
Super
office
bad.
and a 2-month-old. And the parents were talking about what's going on, and the baby wasn't sleeping. When the baby would fall asleep, it would be about 15 minutes and they wake up into a big time scream and in terror. Uh, you felt the belly of the baby and it was very hard, and that's not how a baby's belly should feel. And
Like,
then
wasn't a six pack?
not a six pack. And then when you're feeling where you're going to adjust, you can feel a lot of tension in through the back and they feel really, really taut. Those are all key signs for a younger baby that there's some kind of stuck stress nervous system going on there. We
Mhm.
got to get them adjusted, and we actually got them adjusted. And I got a text from the parents that it was the first time took a nap for 2 full hours
Mhm.
and pooped right away.
Amen.
Yeah.
And those are all signs of a unstuck, unstressed nervous system kicking into the parasympathetic, where we're getting the resting, healing going on. For a little bit older of a kid, like 1 to 4 years old, I think one of the biggest signs is they're go, 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 go. And we call it all gas, no brake.
Yeah.
Gas pedal the whole time. And then all of a sudden they crash and they wipe out and they're passed out for 5, 6 hours. And they wake up and they're gas, 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 gas. They struggle paying attention in school because they're all stuck in that sympathetic dominant state.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some key things that parents could kind of watch out for through their kids, depending on the age. And then those are telltale signs that we got to get your kid into a chiropractor and get them adjusted.
Yeah.
So you said something good, which was, we don't obviously X-ray kids and babies, well, young kids and babies, right? There's one other demographic that we all see that we also don't X-ray. It's pregnant moms.
Mm-hmm.
And here's something cool with all three of us. All three of our wives have been pregnant. We've adjusted all three of our wives
Mm-hmm.
through their pregnancies, and we adjust other moms through their pregnancies. What would you say? Let's get that conversation going on. What's the benefit of adjusting or getting adjusted as a pregnant mom?
The first benefit, clearly, and why most moms get adjusted, like tip of the iceberg, is because statistically, better hip alignment and spinal alignment for mom is going to reduce labor times.
Drop the mic right there.
Get
Boom.
adjusted if you're pregnant. Get adjusted.
Yes.
Reducing labor times, reducing just overall pain levels associated with delivery, and reducing overall interventions. Like, boom, if you want to stack the deck in your favor to have a natural, unmedicated, safe delivery, getting adjusted has to be in your plan. Like, period. Deeper than that, though, there's a lot of other great things. So we go back to the nervous system of just, as mom's nervous system is regulated, so goes the baby. And they've looked at cortisol levels of moms. If mom's cortisol, maternal cortisol is high, that baby will be born with elevated cortisol. And if that never gets addressed, that baby, if it's a girl, grows up to have her babies, there can be maternal cortisol that gets passed down to a second generation grandbaby.
Yes.
High cortisol. So when the nervous system is aligned, that allows that baby growing in the womb to not only develop with room to be, head down, left side, ready to rock and roll during game time, but also not stressed, hormones at the proper level, everything clicking as it should be, and having a happy, healthy baby on the other end.
You also just said your wife during pregnancy.
Yes. You hit on all the main points and the kind of like research stuff that's out there. It's hard to do research on pregnant moms because
You will be less moody.
Yeah. But we all see it in our office when you have someone getting adjusted and your spine's in alignment, the true definition of health, how your body's functioning, healing, and adapting. You're literally creating a human inside of you. It's what probably the most important job that you can possibly have. So go moms for that. But it's
moms.
you want to make sure that your body's functioning, healing, and adapting at the highest level so that you can create and design your baby as optimally as possible, which again is one of the most important things. And so my wife is a pediatric occupational therapist. So we worked with kids that are high on the autism spectrum and have high sensory disorders, I guess you could call it. And I think one of the most common things, and it touches on what you said, Dr. Lucas, when you have a stressed mom and a mom with trauma that's giving birth to a child, you see those things have a much higher likelihood of being passed on to a child. So, and it's, I don't want to say 100% of the time, but 99.5% of the time when you see kids coming in with those things going on, a lot of the times it's mom who had a stress or a trauma background. So one of the most important things is getting adjusted so we can reduce those levels and make sure that mom has a calm nervous system so we don't pass that on through the baby.
I would say from like a wellness standpoint, you guys just nailed if you're pregnant or if you know someone who's pregnant, it's a no-brainer to make sure that the nervous system that is regulating mom's body, that same nervous system is what's creating this child. So if you want that nervous system to be working at a 100% to create this beautiful child, make sure that the nervous system going through the mom is clear and connected and perfect.
Mhm.
But then on the other side, then so now you have the moms who like I had a mom a couple weeks ago who came in, and she came in kind of late, so she was at like 36 weeks, and it was the wildest thing. The baby was like fully stuck onto her left rib cage, and she's like, "Yeah, he just likes to be over here." I'm like, "No, no, he doesn't like to be there. He's stuck there."
Mhm.
And when we start checking her, her round ligaments were completely off. Her pelvis was completely rotated. So if her pelvis is rotated, her ligaments are stuck. The baby is being pulled into this corner. So you think about not only is the baby stuck, causing mom to be in a ton of pain,
Mhm.
but that baby's cognitive development goes down if they don't have proper movement in
Mhm.
utero, right? So we get this mom adjusted, and then all of a sudden I get a text the next day saying, "Oh my God, he just dropped into my pelvis."
Mm.
Like, yeah, because everything is where it belongs. And this so you start seeing like there are lots of scenarios where yes, there's a wellness side to it, but also there's a lot of moms who if they didn't know chiropractic was an option, like what else would they now do to try to get this baby to be unstuck?
Mhm.
Do you know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I have a question on those lines. Many moms come in saying, "Hey, I want to get in chiropractic because my baby is breech and I want them to flip head down." We see a lot of babies flip, but I guess for both of you, can we flip babies? Like, is there a specific adjustment that we do to flip a baby that's breech and go head down? Or how does that work?
Yeah, I think to say we flip babies is a double-edged sword. I think we put the body in the best position
Yes.
and the body does the work every single time.
Yeah.
So, and that's the basics of chiropractic in general. We put the body in the best position, your body does the healing every single time. So, with the mom part and breech babies, we work on different ligaments of the spine, make sure the hips are in the right position, and make sure the body's nice and relaxed. And when we put the body in the right position, the baby wants to flip on their own and the body will do the work to flip the baby because we're creating designed to have the best position possible and the body knows what that best position is. So do we do it? No, but I think we put the body in the best position for the mom's body to be able to do it.
I would I would just piggyback and say that I think the question you would ask is if the natural design is for the baby to be head down in the right position, why are they not? And there's got to be there's always an interference,
Yeah.
right? So the question is like, what is the interference? And you don't like there you don't want to get into this and think that we know more than what God's doing in there, because there's been times where we had a patient who the baby wouldn't flip, wouldn't flip, wouldn't flip. They got in there, and these doctors were trying to like do these manual flip positions. She unfortunately had to go and get a C-section, and what they have found is that at some point, the baby was so entangled in the umbilical cord that it was not possible for that baby to flip.
Hmm.
And again, there's lots of things that could have led to how that happened, but the point is that the baby was stuck. So like us getting in there thinking we're gonna manually make it happen wasn't the answer either. It's saying, hey, you do everything in our power to put the body in the greatest state of ease so that it can function the exact way that God designed it to function. And then it's like we always say in chiropractic, we said we move the bone, and what?
God does the healing.
Every time. We don't do any of that other stuff. We put the body in the best alignment. You let God do the rest.
Yeah. And you stack the deck in that mom and that baby's favor. I think the statistic with moms under chiropractic care allowed to go full term, the amount of babies that still present at term as breech, 4%. Which
Yeah.
means 96% of the time, a
Oh, yeah.
mom getting adjusted,
Yeah.
they're going to be in such great alignment that that baby is going to have room to be head down, ready to rock and roll, which
Yeah.
is really cool. Because again, that's not amazing Dr. Mike or Dr. Matt. That's no amazing body that it
Yeah.
can take this adjustment and use it for just perfection in labor and delivery.
Yeah, really quick before we move on to the next thing, I wanted to touch on something that you said, uh, where the stress is passed on from mom to baby. Also, one of our first things we ask a new mom coming in with their baby is how'd the birth process go? And it's very, very important. Another chiropractor in pediatrics talks about it. And a stressful birth process for a baby
Mhm.
starts also a stressed nervous system for a baby as they're growing and developing. So, for moms out there that are listening that think that they might have had a stressed or a stressful delivery, things didn't go exactly as planned. Things were added in. They had to use the forceps
Mhm.
or pull them out,
Vacuum.
vacuum. You need to go get your kids
Yeah.
checked
Shoulder
because a
getting stuck.
stressful delivery can affect the nervous system, and that's when things start to develop from there. So if you're listening and you think you've had one of those, just go talk to a chiropractor or we can help with that. So you can.
What's the stat of, was it Dr. Tobin? You guys might know this. Medical doctor checked the upper neck alignment of babies and found that
91%.
91% of babies born misaligned.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is crazy. Like, that's wild.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And who's checking all those babies? Like, very, very, very few people are doing that.
Yeah.
So if you're at all concerned, like, oh, maybe my baby hasn't, you get them checked.
Yeah.
It's so quick. It's so easy. Like,
Mhm.
let's even just talk about what a baby adjustment is. It popping, Dr. Mike?
Lots of popping. No. And so this is actually funny. So fun fact, by the way, if you're watching this and if you're in one of our offices, obviously, between the three of us, our wives have had 8 home births. Just like, I
That's
just
pretty
sat on
cool.
that for a second.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Right. So when it comes to wanting to have a natural, healthy pregnancy with your baby, like if you're watching this and you're in one of our offices, you're in the right place, and there's an amazing community here. But going back, like, no, the adjustment is so gentle and soft. In fact, I think all of us probably did the same, but I adjusted all 3 of my kids within 30 minutes of them being born. So it can be done really quick. All 3 of them were, 2 out of the 3 were born in the bathtub. So it was very smooth. My wife actually pulled 2 of them out by herself. Like, and you watch this and you're like, oh, so there was no extra strain on their neck coming out. I get to watch that beautiful process. And when I checked them, they still had slight rotation just because of the amount of force and corkscrewing that has to happen for them to exit the canal. And that's a lot of compression and twisting on their neck just coming out of the canal. And that's not even counting somebody on the outside pulling them out.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're doing the adjustment, I mean, it's a very light pressure that's being held to glide the bone right back into place. And but it takes someone who knows what they're doing to identify where is that bone stuck. How do we glide that bone back in gently? And what's neat is usually if that bone is out, some things that you'll see is an inability for the baby to latch. You'll see colic, you'll see reflux, you'll see irritability, you'll see not sleeping, you'll see a tenseness of their body, maybe even a torticollis of them. All these things are commonly seen when they're out of alignment, but they are not normal.
Not normal. Yeah. Agreed.
Got to anchor
Amen.
back to that.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, again, light pressure. I always tell moms before I adjust them, it's going to look like I'm doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just setting my hands on them. And then I describe it as if you have a quarter and you place it on your skin. That's the kind of pressure that we're using,
that's
right?
good.
Very, very light pressure. And with kids, there's no scar tissue or adhesions or bones you actually adjust. It's not the same as an adult adjustment. It's just very light pressure. And then I always I talk about it with people as well. When I feel the bone move, it's like one of the coolest things because you just feel it a little bit of a glide in, and you kind of see babies just do one of these, and
Yeah.
you know that you got it. So very, very gentle.
Babies can sleep through the adjustment.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
so gentle. It is.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they give you that, like, thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Look, you see their eyes dilate slightly.
hmm One of the things that I think is very important that we all do in our office, and we kind of hit on it with the X-ray portion we were talking about, is spinal correction versus pain management
yeah.
Come
type
on now.
stuff. So that I think this is something that we miss a lot in chiropractic, unfortunately, is where But in our network, what
Mhm.
we do is we do spinal correction stuff. So I don't know if one of you want to talk about that and kind of talk about the process that we do for that.
Yeah, I guess what is the difference between spinal correction, what we focus on, and maybe what typically people think of conventional chiropractic? Like,
Well, here's what's funny. You walk in, obviously you're watching this in the office, and you, if you're a first time person, you walked in and you were unaware of chiropractic that's structural based like this. You come in, you see everybody wiggling on these chairs and they're hanging off the walls, and people are wearing all this funky stuff on themselves while they're vibrating. And like, what is happening in here? And then you get into the why behind it, and you get into this concept of, hey, if your spine has been stuck for so long, there's three parts that you're going through right now in a spinal corrective process. We call it the mix, the fix, the set. So what's happening is that you're doing these special warm-ups designed on your spine, right? Based off what we see on the x-rays. That's how you're going to warm up your spine to make sure that you're creating blood flow, you're getting lymph moving, you're pumping nutrients back into the disc, you're hydrating the spine, you're preparing the spine for a very good adjustment. Now, this is what we do now, but 50, 60 years ago, they didn't have all this. All they did was put a e-stim pack on you. So if you're going somewhere where they're just putting an e-stim pack on you, like, there are more effective ways now to hydrate and mobilize the spine. That's going to help you get the best adjustment possible. So now you get in, you get a corrective adjustment based off of your x-rays. So now based off of your spine, we know what needs to move and where it needs to be adjusted. So now you get a very specific adjustment delivered. And then you take that, now move on to these vibration plates wearing specific weighting structures to now correct the spine with your postural, and then getting the nervous system to connect to what's happening, so that way your muscles adapt in the right way, so you can actually rewire
mhm.
muscle memory to work for you, so that you're holding the adjustment for a longer time frame, now correcting underlying root cause versus just getting a quick pop and leaving.
Yeah, I think that those three-step process answers three major chiropractic objections. Number one is that people will come in to get adjusted, and at other place will say like, oh, I'm stiff and like my bones don't move that well, that's because you didn't move them. And then part of the plus on the e-stim or the massage is great, now you're warmed up, but it took 15 or 30 minutes and you were no active participant. So
Mhm.
the benefit of doing the mobility in our office is like, you are an active participant and now your body's ready for a great adjustment, so it
Yeah.
helps the adjustment. Number two is you're getting adjusted specifically off your x-rays. One of the biggest complaints I hear from people coming through other chiropractic offices is like, oh, I just get the same adjustment. It seems like the same, everyone's getting the same adjustment. Whereas if we have your x-rays up, you're getting a mat adjustment, you're getting a mic adjustment. It's very specific off of exactly what you need, not someone else. So you get the right adjustment. And three, with the stability exercises, change the posture, that is addressing the objection of, hey, I feel great when I leave the chiropractic office, but then I get home and I reach down to get my kids or I go back to work and it goes back out again.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just trying to treat the same thing over and over. And so with the stability, not only is it stabilizing there, but you are now strengthening your posture so it doesn't go back out again and put you back to square one. So it's a way better deal than
Yeah.
just coming in with you hurt and like, okay, I'm feeling good. And then I'll wait till I feel bad again. And I come back in like, that's just a natural medication in my book, like a natural
Mm-hmm.
band-aid. So you want to get to the root cause. The correction is definitely the way to go.
And then that's what's happening in the office. Another big separator, to your point, is most chiropractors, or I think a lot don't give supportive rehab after. So
Mhm.
Matt, what's the benefit, or why are we giving people homework, so to speak?
Yeah, I think again we touch on a lot of this stuff, and we're doing things repeatedly outside of the office to pull our spine in a negative direction or
Yep.
a way that's going to impact our health in a negative way. So, just examples of that: if you work at a computer all day and you sit there for 8 hours at work, and you're sitting at a desk typing like this, you're pulling your spine in a position that is not good for your body's healing, functioning, and adapting. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing I have a guy who works construction. He works one of those things where he's
Oh yeah.
driving on the road doing this all day. He comes in to get adjusted weekly because he knows he's doing something all the time where he's in this position and it's putting his spine in a compromised position
Yep.
and then affecting his body's health,
Mhm.
healing, functioning, and adapting. So we provide exercises at home and give everybody a home care kit, right, with their own things to do at home to make sure we're putting positive forces on the spine or positive impact on the spine. So a lot of the times it's similar to what we do in the office, but it's just another touch point to make sure
Mhm.
that we're getting our spine to hold after a long, stressful day at work. Whether we're doing construction, we're sitting in a computer, it all can affect your spine in a negative position. And that's where I think we get people to get better results because their spine is staying and holding that adjustment for longer because of the home care. One of the things that I think also with the warm ups that is very, very important, and I think is related to a lot of different things, is cerebrospinal fluid.
Ooh, come on.
When we are wobbling, our hips act as a pump, and there's
Hmm.
actually some uh, correlation out there when
Yes, they do.
when we're wobbling, or sometimes if we're sitting at a desk too long, you'll notice that people will start to rock. And it's because your body naturally wants to get that cerebrospinal fluid moving to the spine.
Hmm.
And what that does is it provides nutrients all the way up to the brain and helps
Hmm.
remove waste from the spine and the brain in the body and helps rehydrate the discs. So when people are wobbling, they're providing the nutrients all the way up.
They say there's I forgot the guy's name now, but there's a guy that won a Nobel Prize for this, and he found that
Roger Sperry.
Roger Sperry, 90% of the nutrition to your brain comes from proper movement in the spine, and that's that pump that Dr. Matt's talking about. You get that pump of CSF flowing up, and that is responsible for 90% of the nutrition coating your brain.
And you
Yeah.
you can feel this.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
think about how fast your thought speed goes if you've been sitting on the couch all day versus if you've been
Yeah.
moving. It's
Yeah.
like you might be physically tired from moving, but your mental clarity and ability to think on your feet and have energy is way higher after a workout or after movement. That is cerebrospinal fluid and nutrition to your brain.
Yep.
Exactly. And there's a lot of correlation with cerebrospinal fluid being stuck and not moving from the brain down to the rest of the body and starting to eat away at the brain because we're getting that negative waste up there. So a lot of times with like athletes when they're doing say a football guy and that you hear CTE all the time and a lot of times they have damage to the neck from so much impact to the neck and they're not getting that proper pump and they're not removing the waste and then all of a sudden you see CTE symptoms start to pop up. So cerebrospinal fluid pumping is one of the most important things, which is why back to the beginning
Yep.
we provide the home care for you to be able to do that stuff, not only in the office when you're there, but also at home or in that maintenance phase.
I think a lot of people come in and they're like, "Man, I want to like." The question, the thing that they ask is like, "What can I do?" And this is why we give you home rehab. It's like, well, here is what you can proactively do at home to make sure that you're playing a part in your body's getting well. Because here's the thing, like you don't want to be reliant on any doctor.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to
Yes.
be
Yes.
reliant on us to make
Mhm.
sure that anytime any little thing happens, you you can't get well without us here. It's like, no, you have your home rehab, get your spine moving. And a lot of times, if you throw something out over the weekend or something happens, you doing your at-home rehab that was designed for your spine that's not right will help mitigate quite a bit of that
Mhm.
until you can get back in for adjustment.
Yeah, I think one of the lies that people, even doctors, might think is like, oh, people just want the easy fix.
Yeah.
And in my experience, I think some people do, but most people, when they understand what's at stake, they don't want the easy fix. They don't want the band aid. They want the specific
Yeah.
exercises, the specific adjustment, the thing that takes work. Because we know instinctively, if I'm living my 24 hours a day out of alignment, one adjustment just coming in, pop and out, like that's not going to fix the problem. Like
Yeah.
there's got to be more.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
just, it can't be that. So yes, it takes more, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you do the work, your body is going to heal. Just
Hmm.
like you water a garden, it's going to grow. Like your body is designed to heal.
Yeah. It's like in our x-ray report, we talk about fixing the spine, the spinal correction aspect of it. And I always tell people if I told you that I was going to get a six pack and get really, really fit, but I was only going to go to the gym once a month and I was only going to eat healthy once a month, what would you tell me?
Give me that plan.
Yeah, give me
Yes.
that. Everybody would love it, but
Not
it's
gonna
not going to
happen.
happen.
No.
The reality is you got to put in the work
Yeah.
to fix your spine. And that's part of the spinal corrective process. And everybody knows that you're not going to get the easy fix because
Mhm.
it takes work to undo all the stuff that happened how many years before. So you got to put in the work multiple times a week, and not only just when you're in our office, it has to be when you're outside the office. So
Mhm.
I have a question for you guys, and I get this. It's a two-part kind of question here, but I get this sometimes. And part one of the question is, sometimes I have patients that come in, and whether maybe it was from a bad experience or whatever, but they're afraid of getting cracked.
Mm.
So number one, I want us to define the crack or the popping that happens in adjustment, because I think that's one thing that some people can be afraid of. Maybe if you're watching this and you have friends that are afraid to get adjusted because they're afraid of the sound, right? But two, does it have to crack
Mhm.
for an adjustment to actually happen? Does it have to make a popping sound for there to be an adjustment?
Great questions. First, for people who are afraid, like, I get it, honestly. Like, we watch movies and you see them.
Freaking Steven Seagal ruined it for all of us.
So if that's you or if that's someone, a loved one, like, it's not like, I get that why they're scared, but you got to know, like, there's nothing dangerous about it. Um, all that's happening in that pop there or that crack, there's nothing breaking or rubbing together. It's literally just like suction cups off a window, a release of pressure, literally a release of synovial joint gas coming out between the joints. Oftentimes it's real, most, what, 98% of the 99% of the time it's going to be relieving, as far as like helping you feel better. But then also, even if you don't like the cracks or you don't get a pop when you're getting adjusted, that doesn't mean it didn't adjust. Some of the best adjustments I've ever had and have ever given didn't make a sound. And actually, this goes perfectly into like babies.
Yeah,
We're
that's
not
my point.
popping
Right.
babies, yet they still are pooping and sleeping better and have these massive changes. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, how did that move? Oh, it's just you can have millimeters of motion and not feel any pop
Yeah.
at all.
yeah, I think it's exactly that. It's motion through the joint. I think a lot of times our brain gets disconnected when we don't have motion through the vertebra.
Right.
Heidi Havoc, I know we all know Heidi Havoc.
Oh,
She did
Heidi.
a study on this where there's things called stretch receptors that sit along the spine, and they attach, or they sit in the muscles that connect the spine together. And the goal with the adjustment is not the pop, as we were just saying. It's you want to stretch the stretch receptors, and I kind of describe it like if any of us were walking around our house and the lights were out,
Mm-hmm.
we'd know how to navigate it, right? We could still get around. But if we threw a bike in the middle of the house and the lights were out, we might hit it. Well, when we stretch the stretch receptors, it turns on the brain to that area and it basically turns on the lights. So the brain can go then and remove the bike or remove the interference and let the healing happen in that area. So we're looking for that stretch to reset the connection to the brain.
Yeah. And sometimes, like you made a comment, you said 99% of the time it's relieving. The handful of times that it's not, and you might get a little bit sore. And I would say that there's a portion of people, if you've never been adjusted and it's your first time getting adjusted, or maybe you haven't been adjusted in years and it's your first time in a while, that I think we all communicate the same way, but it's like you should be sore.
Yeah.
Like you should be a little bit sore because the muscles and the ligaments are in a new position now than they've not been before. So they're trying to adapt to a brand new place, and you've worked them. So like the soreness though is equivalent to like if you went to the gym and worked out that you haven't in a while, you would be a little bit sore, but you wouldn't go to the gym and work out and be like, oh, that must be bad for me. Never gonna do that again because I'm sore. It's like, no, like something happened there, you know? So getting adjusted, it's the same concept that like there's gonna be a little bit of soreness
Mhm.
if it's like that. But again, this is why going back to it, this is why we pair your adjustment with home rehab to get proper movement back in to the spine, you know?
Yeah. One thing I always think about is that if it was like the pop of the adjustment was all important, then why wouldn't I just walk on your back?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get all the pops in the world, but that's not doing it. So
Mhm.
No.
it's got to be specific based off your x-rays, mobility, but with specific alignment to take pressure off the nerves. Like it's so much more than just
Mm-hmm.
just a
Oh,
pop.
Yeah.
this brought me to another question. You guys ready for this?
Sure.
Why is it bad to pop my own neck?
Mm.
Oh, I love
Mm.
this
I
question.
might disagree with you guys on this.
Huh? Ooh, let's see. I'm curious. But this goes to show that this is not rehearsed. This is all on the fly right
Yeah.
now. This is
So
good.
we'll see.
But
So
yeah,
my
yeah.
understanding is that our grandmas were right a lot about a lot of things, but not about popping your joints, giving you
Mhm.
arthritis. So when you pop your neck, you are not so fragile. Because what happened used to happen, people get adjusted, they leave, they get in their car, and they'd feel a pop, they'd run back in and say, "Doc, I'm out of alignment. Can you recheck?" It's like, no, Mary,
Yeah.
you're just fine. You're not that fragile.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you have that feeling, if you've been working all day and you're like, "Oh, I just gotta pop my neck," that is a signal that your body is sending you to move. Just like you need food, your body signals hunger. You need motion, your body signals, hey, pop it. So when you pop it, it feels great. But then 30 minutes, an hour later, you feel like you need to do it again because you didn't get the bone that needed to move moving,
Mhm.
because you don't have an x-ray. It didn't go in a specific line of drive for alignment. So that's where the chiropractor comes in, is like, hey, you're not damaging your body by popping. You're just ignoring the root cause. So you guys probably see this when we start adjusting, mainly kids, like teenagers. They're like, oh, I don't feel like I need to pop my neck anymore. Like that's
Mhm.
gone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take.
Yeah,
I,
I agree.
Okay.
I agree with
yeah.
that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I feel like the one key thing with that is when you're popping your own neck, you're not, I always say passive range of motion, right? You're not going like this and then taking your neck and doing one of
No, yeah.
Don't
those.
touch
I
your
don't
head.
encourage popping the neck. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's more if you're gonna do something, it's in a passive range of motion, and you just, I mean, you'll see me do it with my neck, just in a normal stretching motion.
Stretching.
But anytime you take it past your passive range, so as far as you could go without actually grabbing it and twisting it,
Bam.
is an okay thing in my
Yeah.
mind. Other than that, I just actually had, no joke, somebody come in yesterday that popped their own neck, who was a patient of mine for a long time, uh, and she took her neck and went like this and did one of these,
Oh.
and she came in and couldn't move her neck.
Yeah.
And it's, you can cause
Yeah.
damage when you
Yes.
take the ligaments past their point that they're able to stretch to. So
Yes.
fine line, motion is good, normal motion, but don't go cranking your
Here's
neck.
my two takes. And I'm glad we all said the similar stuff here, but I would agree that the one thing I always say is that when you do it, the relief you're getting and the pop you're getting is not the right bone.
Mhm.
You're the bone that's stuck, you're probably hypermobilizing the top and above and
Mhm.
below. So you're getting a relief, but the reason why it comes back is because it's not the relief that you
Mhm.
need. It's not the right relief.
Mhm.
The other thing that I tell people is, and I use this example a lot, is that uh, the people who do self adjust, I asked them, I said, on average, how many times a day would you say you do it? What do you think the average
It's
answer
like
is?
30.
It's like so much, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's in 15 to 18 ish is what I usually hear. And then so I say, okay, you self pop your neck 15 times a day. We'll say that. And I go, so I'm your professional doctor, the spine specialist. And if you came to me for spinal recommendations and I told you, okay, I need to see you 15 times a day, what would you tell me?
You're crazy.
You're crazy. I'm like, you're crazy. Stop popping your neck 15 times a
Yeah.
day.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Agreed.
It's
Yes.
so funny.
Yeah. Uh, Before we move on, I have a patient kind of testimonial for you don't need the pop.
Oh,
We met her at a screening event. She had her own jewelry at her own booth, and uh, we went over and talked to her because we weren't having many people come up to our booth, and we started talking, and she's getting headaches, and it's been going on for like 7 years, to where she's had migraines multiple times a month, like over 5 to 6 times a month for migraines, which is, that's a lot
yeah.
to have a migraine, not only just a headache. And she came in, and her spine, we've all felt them, was so rigid,
Mm.
and it was, I adjusted her and I gave her everything I have, and nothing happened.
Mm.
And I sat up, and it was like one of my first times out on my own. I'm like, wow, humbling. And
Yeah.
sometimes when, as a chiropractor, if you don't get the pop, you're like, oh, that's, I didn't do something right. But in the reality, I got motion through the bone. And from that point on, she never had another migraine again.
There
Come
you go.
on.
And she kept getting adjusted, and then things started to loosen up and move. The spine became more mobile, and she's still in our office today. So
Good.
it's been about 2 years that she's been in our office now, and she, on the first adjustment, nothing happened, and her body still got rid of those migraines. So it's really cool to see, and it's a kind of a testimony. You don't need the pop, you just
Yep.
need to get motion back through the body and let the body do its thing.
Yep. 100%.
Cool.
All right. You want to throw out some wrap up comments to lock this thing in?
Yeah. I would love to throw out some wrap up comments.
Here, I'll go first.
Yeah.
I'll go first. So as we're going through this, number one, if you're watching this in the office, here's what I want you to do. I want you to come to whoever's office you're in. If you found this valuable, I want you to make sure you come tell us, because if you guys want us to do a round 2 of this, let us know, and we can do a round 2. If you have a topic that we didn't hit on that you want us to hit on, make sure you come let us know. Here's the encouragement that I have is that when you look at chiropractic, there is so much value to understanding chiropractic for what it was originally designed for, helping the body adapt to the external stressors that are drawing the body down, creating a dis-ease in your nervous system, bringing overall functionality to a low point, right? So when people understand what chiropractic really is, helping the body to heal, function, and adapt at its greatest potential to allow your body to heal the exact way that God designed it to heal. This is when we become free from the tyranny of the medical merry-go-round. We become free of all the drugs that you were listing off and the chronic diseases that you see. This is when we get a sick culture healthy. But it starts with people understanding this and having a paradigm shift. And this is the purpose of what we're doing today, is helping not just you guys understand the concept of this, but making sure that how can we help equip you to be able to better communicate this to everybody that you know, to make sure that whoever office you're a part of, you get more people to understand this concept, because the more we know, the more we can grow this mission better.
Yeah, I think that's a good call to action. One thing that I would like to end off is, if you know somebody that you're listening to kind of what we were saying here, whether it's a mom, whether it's a new baby, whether it's someone who's just in pain, whether they're not in pain and you just know that they need to get their spine checked, we have 3 offices that
Yeah.
I can confidently send anyone to, and I know they're going to get quality care. And we cover most of East Valley over here. So we want to make sure that we're getting people checked. So if you know somebody and they're not necessarily, like if somebody's in Ahwatukee where I'm at and they have a friend or family member out towards Queen Creek or Gilbert, well, we know somebody that we can send them to. And
Queen Creek, just so we know, just for clear.
Yeah.
Ahwatukee, Queen Creek, Chandler.
So come tell us and we can connect you with them. So that way they're getting their spine checked, and it is that important. Everyone needs to know what their spine looks like, and everyone needs to have a happy, healthy nervous system. So please come tell us so we can get them to the right people.
Good.
One thing I really recognize right now that you guys in the office see too is the culture is shifting. Make America healthy again. We got our Make Arizona healthy again shirts, and red dye, what, 3 is banned, and they're going against seed oils and all these wins, but none of that is as important as an individual taking ownership over their health. And that's what I like about chiropractic, is that the doctor is not the healer. You are. Like, the power that God put inside your body is the true healer. And us 3, like, we're just the tools. God's the mechanic. Like, we're just removing the interference. And then the power in your body is healing. And so wherever you're at in your health, whether you have symptoms or not, kids or not, whatever stage, if you know you want to take more ownership over your health, and that you were made for more, and you don't want to just be baseline, oh, I'm fine, everyone else is kind of doing the same thing as me, but you want to be different, like, that's what happens when you take your health to the next level through this path. It's not easy, but it does work every single time. You get results. So yeah, taking ownership of the health, that is the next phase I see in culture, to really making people healthy again, is when they see that no one else is going to do it for them, and that they can do it, and we can help you do that.
The words of the great philosopher Spider-Man: when great knowledge comes great responsibility.